Duke football finally has their next head football coach. Really exciting news here today to discuss. Manny Diaz will be taking over the Blue Devil program. Let's dive in here on today's episode.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man. To Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So glad to have you here with us on Friday, December 8th, 2023. Manny Diaz has been named the next football coach for Duke University. We will discuss that on today's show with my good pal Josh Cox from the Section 17 podcast. If you have not done so already, please be sure that you follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. Follow me there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. It's 5-Star Friday. Let's give some shout outs towards the end of the program for those that have left us amazing 5-star reviews. We really do support or appreciate your support of the program. Follow us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Like this video. Share it with your friends. Again, your support just means so much to us. Without further ado, let me bring on my good pal, Josh Cox from the Section 17 podcast. The wait is over. It took a little bit longer, I think, than people might have been comfortable for, but we now have the next head football coach for Duke University. Manny Diaz will replace Mike Elko in that seat. Josh, welcome on in. What'd you think of the hire?
Hey, buenos dias, man. That's what I say. But yeah, it was. I'm obviously comfortable with the hire. I think as a whole, I think Duke fans, are very trusting of Nina King. They appreciate the work she did 2 years ago in the same situation or similar situation. And you get a head coach with head coaching experience, with coordinator experience at the highest level, and a guy who's familiar with the ACC. Has been a position coach, in the ACC, been a head coach in the ACC. And quite frankly, I feel like was a little prematurely terminated at his position at Miami when that took place. And so, yeah, I'm all in on Diaz days and whatever, all the hashtags that have been floating around already. But hopefully we get Manny wins. They're all coming, man. I'm getting them all, But anyway, yeah, JJ, it was really cool, man. And last night, we obviously the rumors started earlier in the day, but then to get that official announcement last night at 9 o'clock was really awesome.
No, excited to see what he can do with this program, kind of building off the momentum that Mike Elko kind of laid out. I think that's Duke Athletics released about a 40-second clip of Nina King at her desk, kind of speaking to those things, welcoming in Manny Diaz to the program. Tomorrow will be the official introductory press conference where we'll get to hear from Coach Diaz himself. We'll get to see, most likely, a Duke lapel pin on his suit. He'll hold up a Duke football jersey. The helmet will be there, and it'll really, really start to soak in that this guy's going to be the one leading the program. ACC roots, I think that's another thing that was important for a lot of people, is kind of knowing who you're going up against year in, year out, kind of knowing the area and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the ACC connections, not only here in the Triangle where he was at NC State, but then obviously that South Florida is where he's from originally. His dad is a former longtime mayor of Miami. Like, he's got like deep-rooted family down there. But I mean, the recruiting in South Florida, Duke, historically, I think back to two of my favorite players to ever don the Duke football uniform, South Florida boys, Donovan Varner and Connor Vernon, both from that area, and to really get a good presence, back down there in South Florida on the recruiting trail is going to be a positive thing. And so, yeah, once again, like I said, all around good hire, great recruiter, has proven to be a great recruiter. And I think we may get into this, but I do think, surrounding himself properly is going to be key.
Definitely something that he's got to focus on. We're already seeing a couple of players voice their support on social media of the hire and that sort of thing. Numbers here for people: 6 seasons spent with NC State as one of their coaches on staff. That's the time frame when Phillip Rivers was in town, and the Wolfpack had a pretty good football program during those days. And then 3 years as the head coach for the Miami Hurricanes, 21-15 overall record, 16-9 mark in the ACC. Fired right after the 2021 season ended, where he won 5 of his last 6 games, finished that 2021 season with a 7-5 win, including a 47-10 win at Duke that ended up being David Cutcliffe's last game as the head coach for the Duke Blue Devils. So a lot of people do believe that Manny Diaz got a little bit of the short end of the stick when it comes to that Miami Hurricanes job. They wanted to spin big. They go out and get Mario Cristobal, and Miami has not turned a corner whatsoever over these last 2 seasons.
Yeah, Miami fans absolutely hate it when you bring it up. Like, they got rid of Coach Diaz after a 7-5 season. They immediately, hire their savior and Mario Cristobal, and he immediately goes 5-7 and whatever they went this year. I think once again, looking back at his time at Miami, and I'm not trying to just be an apologist for Manny Diaz. I mean, I want to be fair to Manny Diaz, but I've heard, multiple people, ironically, they're UNC fans and Florida State fans, but say like how terrible Manny Diaz was at Miami. And I'm like, hold on. His worst season was his first season. They ended up still going bowling. They went bowling all 3 years. He coached in 2020 and 2021 during all that tumultuous COVID, all the craziness going on.
Yeah.
And he still led the team to 2 winning seasons. I think they went 9-3 or 8-3 and then 7-5. And it's like, what more do you want from the guy? They get rid of him and they get worse. And so I actually applaud what he did at Miami during those 3 seasons. And, once again, Duke fans would not be disappointed. Obviously Duke wants to play for championships and Duke wants to win the ACC and get into that top 12 and things like that. But I mean, Duke's not going to be mad about 8-3, 7-5, 9-4, those types of things. They're going to be fine with that.
Big time win, I think, for this Duke football program, getting Manny Diaz to be their next head coach. Well, he's got to put a coaching staff together, and I think that's something that he will immediately speak to once he takes the podium tomorrow as he's introduced us to the next head coach. We will speak to that, however, after we take this first time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson alongside my good friend Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. All right, Manny Diaz is the head coach. People want to know, what's this coaching staff going to look like? Right now, Trooper Taylor is the interim head coach for the Duke football team. Duke right now is obviously getting ready for a big signing day here in a couple of weeks to fill out that 2024 high school recruiting class. The transfer portal is popping off and going crazy right now. A lot happening in the life of this program. In the press release, Duke announced that Manny Diaz would not coach in the bowl game, which I think is wise. They're going to move forward with Trooper Taylor and kind of the rest of the surrounding staff here to finish out this 2023 season. Officially, kind of speak to that, Josh, if you will, and then kind of the plans to put together our coaching staff.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, I think it's very respectful to Trooper Taylor to allow him to coach this bowl game. What that guy did for these nearly 2 weeks where Duke was without a head coach and keeping that program together, keeping the guys in that locker room as best as he possibly could together on the same page. He and the rest of the coaching staff hitting the recruiting trail, visiting those players who have verbally committed. I can personally vouch for at least for Trooper on that. I've communicated with him quite a bit over the last 10 to 12 days, and he has been at recruits' houses. He's been at football games. Some of them are playing basketball too, and he's been to basketball games, and like he's been that guy, and so I applaud Trooper for that. I do believe that's the best move, letting him coach this team in the bowl game. As far as the other position coaches and coordinators and whatnot, until they find another position or offered another position, I believe, they would still be employees of Duke, and so they're going to coach to the best of their ability, I believe, and their character will win out there. And I believe Duke will go into Birmingham and put their absolute best foot forward there. As far as the second part of the question, what's it going to look like for Coach Diaz to build his staff out is a great question. There have been some behind the scenes talk. Obviously, David Feely is a Manny Diaz guy. We are 100% confident that David Feely is a part of the Duke program moving forward.
Duke's strength coach, who had
strength
been
and
with
conditioning,
Elko and had been on Manny Diaz's staff all 3 years at Miami.
Correct. And who, people argued who was the most important person in that program, Mike Elko or David Feely.
Yeah.
And so just being honest. So David Feely staying is a major, major deal. It had been originally reported, and actually from inside the program, some of the sources we had, that he was going to head to Texas A&M and had some change of heart and change of mind and stayed. And so that's really big. The second chip I believe that will fall is Jess Simpson, the defensive line coach for Duke, also worked under Manny Diaz. I would expect Diaz to try to retain him. He's done a great job with Duke's defensive line, and I don't see why he wouldn't try to retain him. And then the third one that we're hearing, and this is not official. It's just, we have ears inside and around. Is that the idea is that Kevin Johns would be the offensive coordinator still, and that's really it's the biggest deal for that is obviously the stability, right? The recruiting stability, the players on the offensive side of the football, just understanding the philosophy and the
quarterback development with the guys that are
development and recruitment. And that's where I was getting to. The number 6 overall quarterback in the country right now is Tyler Cherry. He's an obvious Kevin Johns recruit. That would be a major thing for Duke to be able to continue to keep Tyler Cherry in the fold. Obviously, we'll find out with signing day coming up very soon, and knowing that Cherry would probably be an early enrollee. So Duke fans will figure out very quickly, how that's going down. But I do believe those three. I'm 100% on David Feely. I'm like 99% on Simpson, and then I'm probably 90% on Kevin Johns. Other than that, I've not been told anything about any of the other coaches. There could be some coaches that Diaz retains. Maybe he has exit interviews, or I guess you call it entrance interviews when he gets there, for him with the remaining coaches. And who knows, he may keep a couple of them. And I will say this, JJ, I think Duke fans know this, and you know this. The staff that the previous coach put together, who will not be named, previous coach put together was a really solid staff. And if those guys don't get retained to Duke, they will find employment very quickly, in the college football world. And so I would just be encouraged, if you're a Duke fan, that all these guys that you've really grown to love over the last 2 years are probably going to move forward, if not at Duke, somewhere else and be successful.
Yeah, well, let's see what the staff looks like. I mean, they got to put it together pretty quickly because you want to go out and continue to recruit and win these battles, and then also start to develop guys because bowl season will come to a close. You've got the NCAA dead period for a little while, but then it's a quick ramp up into spring, and that's where we hear so frequently in college football, most of your development can take place kind of in those spring periods as you're working towards a spring game. Mike Elko out the door. We've heard a couple of names following him likely to College Station. And so we'll see kind of what that means for the rest of these Duke coaches, whether or not, we kind of have to send them off and find out where their next spots would be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have Coach Cushing on the offensive line. I believe he's officially been named. Coach Ish has already changed all of his Twitter stuff over. And to my knowledge, those are the two right now.
Yeah.
There are a couple of other coaches on the staff that I know have at least been reached out to by Coach that I have not, that I will not name, that you named. I'm just kidding. I actually love Mike Elko. I'm just messing with him. But Coach Elko reached out to them, and they just haven't made a decision, or they're not sure if the position is really available for them there at Texas A&M. So we'll see. I mean, honestly, let's be honest. There is a difference in Duke and Texas A&M, and Coach Elko literally has a full wide range of people he can choose from, and so it'll be interesting, though. It'll be definitely interesting to see, and it's going to all happen. JJ, probably within the next 5 to 6 days, you're going to see everything kind of fall into place.
Very interesting to see how all these staffs are coming together. You mentioned Coach Ish, and for Duke fans out there working with the secondary this past season, a lot of good development for those guys over there. He has already changed his profile on social media to the defensive backs coach at Texas A&M, although Texas A&M has not officially reported that he has been hired and joined their staff. And as our good pal Connor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated pointed out in his story last night, Coach Ish worked on Manny Diaz staff in 2021 at Miami. There are so many parallels and crossovers in this coaching biz. I think it's going to be pretty crazy. One more note on just kind of the coaching where we're at with bowl prep here, and then we'll take one more break and talk a little bit more about Manny Diaz himself. Duke, of course, getting set to take on Troy in the Birmingham Bowl. It's interesting to figure out who's going to be available. But yesterday we saw Trooper Taylor in Birmingham for their official welcome event with the head coaches. Trooper on Duke's behalf, and John Sumrall was there for Troy. And yet today, Josh, we see some reports out there that he's out the door. Yeah, he's throwing up the peace sign. Deuces.
He is headed to Tulane. You kind of expected something. I mean, his name was getting thrown, out there, everywhere.
In the Duke search even, yeah.
Yes, even in the Duke search. And so, by the way, as we're recording this podcast, I just got the email that the press conference will be tomorrow morning at 11:30 a.m. So,
awesome.
So that'll be the introductory. But yeah, I mean, so it's going to be interim coach versus interim coach here in the Duke Troy in the Birmingham Bowl. That should be very interesting for sure. But yeah, Sumrall was definitely on a lot of lists, even the Duke list. And, there was actually some behind the scenes talk of Tulane being interested in Diaz as well. And almost Diaz maybe even using some of their offer to kind of work his to a betterment.
Smart businessman.
Exactly, smart businessman. So interestingly enough, Duke and Troy, are kind of connected there with the coaching searches.
That sounds like a mayor's son to me, trying to make the most in politic and people. Right. And
I just want to smoke. I just want to smoke a cigar with him.
It seems like one heck of a guy. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's take our last break on today's show, and we'll wrap up after this here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Locked On Blue Devils here today. Let me tell you about our good friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's largest daily fantasy sports platform out there. The easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch all of those winnings roll in. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from a specials league. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports. For example, you could have LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-point shots made plus receptions. Pretty fun one that they've got right there. Go ahead and go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use that code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Using code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, here we go. We keep it moving. Locked On Blue Devils here today. JJ Jackson alongside Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Promote your work, if you will. What can people find?
Yes, Section 17 podcast, wherever you consume podcasts, whether it be YouTube or any audio platform there. We would really appreciate, you listening and watching on YouTube, subscribing, and then, of course, 5-star ratings and reviews, 5-star Friday, right? Ratings and reviews, Apple ratings on Spotify, wherever you listen. But what we do is we bring you an in-depth look at Duke football, and we try to stay as connected as we possibly can. Well, we'll be at the press conference tomorrow with Coach Diaz. We'll more than likely be getting some sort of access to him for an interview at some point in time. But we do try to cover and give insider access to fans. We really do try to keep it fan-centric, what a fan would want to know or see about a program. So then Facebook, you can find us at Duke Football Talk. Everywhere else, you can find us at Duke FB Talk. And we'd love to connect with you for sure.
Absolutely. Go check it out. 5-star ratings and review. So appreciative on that Apple Podcast platform in particular. Let me give a 5-star Friday shout out to Poodle Duke 1, one of my more recent interview or 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts. Posted excellent Duke exclusive content from a variety of perspectives. And let's give a Section 17 shout out, if we will. I've got one here, a 5-star Friday rating from Duke Sean. Duke Sean gave 5 stars to that Section 17 podcast. Great content, great interviews, great passion for the best football team in the ACC. Now turn the music up. Good stuff there. On
that was a tribute to the former coach.
Yes.
Today,
5-star Friday. We love it. All right, so let's talk about the new coach, Manny Diaz, who takes over this Duke football program. Something we have yet to mention that was highlighted. Like Mike Elko, a little bit of a younger coaching candidate, as Manny Diaz is just 49 years old. A lot of life left in his football coaching career, Josh.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, listen, I heard a stat the other day, and I'm not sure if this is Power 5 or if this is just on the FCS level, whatever it is. But the average stint of a head coach now is 2.7 years. Average stint of a head coach. So I will say this, Duke fans, I do not know if Manny Diaz has said, man, I'm pulling my trailer up to this joint and we are unloading in the new house and we are going to be here for 10 to 15 seasons until I'm whatever. I don't know that. I can't say that. What I can say is that if Duke is successful and they can continue to be successful, Duke's coaches, coordinators, and position coaches are going to consistently be up for bigger and better jobs. It's Duke's job to stay relevant, to win football games, and then the truth is to pay enough money to keep players, to keep coaches. And so I do feel like, Manny being 49, he's got another 20 years of coaching left in him. And I would just say this to Duke fans: enjoy every minute of it. Just enjoy it. He's a charismatic dude. He's going to be awesome. I heard someone say that they have never heard a better motivational speaker. Like he is.
I saw that too. Yeah.
he's all. So that's what I would say. I don't try to look too far ahead, JJ, anymore. I want to enjoy the first season. I want to enjoy the first of everything. And then, go from there.
Yep. 49 years old, Manny Diaz takes over as the Duke football head coach here after spending the last 2 seasons as Penn State's defensive coordinator. He is a semifinalist for the Broyles Award this year, which goes to the top assistant coach in all of football. Entering this postseason, Penn State has the number 1 overall defense at 223 yards per game that they've given up, and number 3 scoring defense, 11.4 points per game this season. And you remember how well that Duke defense was playing through the first 6 weeks of the year when it was like, you're scoring 7 points and that's it against this Blue Devil team. So, I definitely think there was a lot of momentum on the defensive side of the ball, obviously, in Mike Elko's tenure. That's got to carry over for Duke.
Yeah, it sure does. And then the question is, has Manny Diaz, are there grad transfers, from Penn State that are going to be, potentially looking for a new home? I'll be honest with you, and I'm sorry, I should have done this. But I haven't necessarily looked at the scheme that Manny Diaz ran at Penn State compared to what Tyler Santucci and Mike Elko did here at Duke last year. But it will be interesting to see how similar those schemes are. And I actually say that really for the linebackers sake. Duke's returning Trey Freeman and Nick Morris Jr. and others, but it would be interesting to see, what his scheme is and how that works out with our current personnel. But I trust that this dude knows what he's talking about. Obviously, he does. And I actually love the fact that Nina went for another defensive-minded hire and didn't go offensive-minded.
So we got Manny Diaz now as the head coach for the Duke football team. ACC ties, like we've talked about, from Miami as a head coach there. His father was the mayor of Miami. Manny Diaz is a Florida State alum, which kind of made that rivalry more heated. Had time at NC State, and then has a Mac Brown connection as well. Mac Brown doing his thing with the Tar Heels these days, and Manny Diaz was his defensive coordinator at Texas for 2 seasons. So I think he's going to quickly walk into this and understand that school 8 miles down the road. You've got your former coach that you look up to and was on his staff in Mac Brown, and Manny Diaz will very quickly jump into the Duke and UNC rivalry. Well,
for sure. And I mean, I think it was Jordan Mann who shared the video of Mac Brown and Manny Diaz coming together at the end of the Miami UNC game, and it looked like a little tense moment there that happened, and so I hope that Diaz comes in and lights a fire in these local rivalries. I hope that the Duke NC State, the Duke UNC, even the Duke Wake Forest, I hope those games become like games where there's so much smack talk or there's so much energy heading into them. Like, I love that stuff. It's so much better for the game of college football. And look, Manny Diaz walks into any room in college football, and they know who Manny Diaz is. He walks into any recruit's house, they know Manny Diaz. And so he fits with what Duke, honestly, with what Mike Elko was saying he was wanting to build at Duke, and that is that national brand. Well, here you bring in a coach that is a national brand himself, and I believe he can help Duke as a program continue to get there.
Let's follow it throughout the weekend. Let's see what they can do at the press conference, what we learn from Manny Diaz tomorrow morning, and then Duke back out on the hardwood. 7 full days off for the basketball team, taking on Charlotte, and we need some positive mojo, Josh. It's 8 games in. Things haven't been going great for this basketball team over the last 2. But let's turn it around this weekend. What do you say?
There we go. Let's turn it around, baby. Yeah, I am not working the Saturday game. I will be working Tuesday, the Tuesday night game. You can follow that along at Duke Report, working with Freddie Hodges there.
The Hofstra game. Yep.
The Hofstra, that's correct. Duke's going to have to turn this thing around, and they're going to be without Tyrese Proctor for a amount of time. Not sure exactly. Coach Shire seemed to be positive about his improvement already on a sprained ankle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's going to be interesting. And honestly, it's time. I mean, I know if you look at the stats, whatever, but it's time for Kyle Filipowski to kind of snap out of whatever it is that he's in. And so it's going to be a crazy weekend. If you have, I'm not doing media, but if you were, you're going to the Manny Diaz intro. You're going straight into the basketball game. You got a full day tomorrow. But yeah, it's a great time of year for Duke fans. And then once again, the Birmingham Bowl, if you're a fan and you're listening to this and you have the ability to get to Birmingham, I want to encourage you. I feel like I feel like I'm a part of the program saying this, but like, to me, the fans really can show by showing up as much as possible to this game that their appreciation for these coaches and the current players that are still left in this roster and like the way they've persevered through these last 2 to 3 weeks. And so, I'm going to make the trip, and it doesn't make sense, but I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense financially. It doesn't make sense anyway, but I'm going to make the trip because I really do want to show these guys as much support as possible. So if you're listening and you're anywhere around Birmingham and you can make it on the 23rd, I know it's Christmas. If you can make it, get to Birmingham.
Make it happen. Josh, it's always great to see you. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, JJ, have a great one, man. We'll see you.
All right, that's Josh Cox joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that's going to wrap us up here for the show today. That wraps us up for the week. A lot of good stuff. We'll have more thoughts and coverage from Manny Diaz over the weekend, and we'll talk Duke basketball a lot next week. Thank you so much for your support. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you, and good day.